I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and this is a Hyundai Venue Go manual, the cheapest new Hyundai that you can buy here in Australia, at least since this Korean manufacturer deleted the Accent from their lineup at the end of last year. And for the last few months, John, Alec and I, the team here at Chasing Cars, we have been running this base Venue as a long-term vehicle. Why? Well, to see how much car you really get for this kind of money. And that kind of money is actually just over $22,000 drive away. So while it is a cheap car in the scheme of the entire automotive market, it isn't that cheap compared to how inexpensive some Hyundais have been in the past. So do you get value for money? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, where I go over the things that we really liked about the Venue and the things that aren't so good about it, so you can learn whether or not you should be closely considering one of these little crossovers in your quest to find an urban runabout. So before we get started, make sure to hit subscribe below the video and the notification bell, and now roll on with the things we liked and the things we didn't about the Hyundai Venue. The first thing we like about the Venue is its good looks. Of course, design is subjective, and this base car in flat white and steel wheels looks pretty appliance-like, but actually, I like the chunky appearance of this vehicle. It's honest. It's not trying to be a lifted hatchback. It looks like a chunky little truckster, and there are certain specification and color combinations that actually look very, very smart indeed on the Venue. In particular, there's a nice sort of denim blue color. There's a lime green. You can make this thing look pretty cool, but for most of those things, you do have to spend a bit more money. However, it does play the part well as a small SUV. We have this black cladding around the lower edges of the car that are going to give you a little bit more protection against brushing up against stuff. But naturally, any pretensions of off-roading are just that, pretensions, because you can't actually get the Venue with all-wheel drive, so this really is a beast for the road. Another thing we love about the Venue is that it includes a number of advanced safety features as standard, and that's really good to see at the low end of the Hyundai lineup. It has a camera-based autonomous emergency braking system, which can detect both cars and pedestrians, which is really good. Plus, lane departure warning and active lane keep assist are standard across the range. Now, you can't turn AEB off. You can switch off lane keep assist if you want, but it defaults to being on every time you start the car. And for a vehicle that for many people will be their first car, that's exactly what we like to see. Unfortunately, the Venue doesn't have a 5-star rating from CAF, the industry crash testing and safety testing body here in Australia. Why is that? It's not because the Venue crashes badly. In fact, CAF rated the Venue's crashworthiness as pretty good. The reason it's not 5 stars is because it doesn't have cyclist detection in the AEB, and that's because Hyundai Australia equipped this car only with a single camera-based sensor for the safety systems. You need at least 2 cameras or radar and LiDAR to make use of cyclist detection and other more complex obstacle detection features. Now, Hyundai were stiffed a little bit because they were the first car with this Venue to go through the new testing protocol, which requires cyclist detection, but as a result, it does have a 4-star rating and not 5. The first thing we like about the driving experience here in the Venue is the peppy engine and gearbox combo, and you certainly wouldn't expect that looking at the numbers, because under the bonnet of the Venue, we have a pretty simple engine. A 1.6 litre naturally aspirated, non-direct injected 4-cylinder, producing 90 kilowatts of power and 151 newton meters of torque. So certainly modest, but the Venue only weighs about 1,200 kilos. So this is a real featherweight in terms of small SUVs. And actually the engine revs really freely, and it's a really good match to the 6-speed manual that you can get on the 2 lower variants. They certainly help you to get the best out of this little engine. And if you keep it on the boil and you roll it along, it actually works pretty well. That being said, there's a 1-litre turbocharged 3-cylinder unit available in this car overseas that I think would be a little torquier, probably a little nicer to drive again, and the engine isn't quite as good with the CVT automatic. Interestingly, the choice of the 1.6 over the 1-litre was made because focus groups thought that a bigger block 1.6 sounded better than a 1-litre, so there you go. Another thing we like and give a lot of credit to is just how well Hyundai have packaged the Venue's interior and cargo space. If you haven't seen one of these cars in the flesh, it's hard to overestimate just how small it really is. It's only 4.04 meters long and 1.77 meters wide, and yet the cabin is actually quite usable for 4 adults. Now, you would want to be riding up front, but you can see that for me, as a 6-footer, I have heaps of headroom. This is a tall car. Legroom, look, yes, okay, my legs are up against the seat in front of me, but I fit. For short distances in the city, the Venue is perfectly usable for 4 people, and that's great. There's even, optimistically, a 5th seatbelt. Our least favorite thing about the Hyundai Venue is in fact its price. Quite simply, we think that it is overpriced. This base Go manual is just over $20,000 list, and Hyundai Australia are offering it for $22,690 drive away. And that is a slight discount on what the on-road cost would be if that offer was not in place. Now, that price is low in terms of a Hyundai. It is the cheapest Hyundai you can buy new, as I've mentioned, but in the sort of taxonomy of small cars, it's kind of expensive. A Volkswagen Polo Trendline manual, which has a leather steering wheel, a leather gear shifter, and a soft touch dash, for example, and greater refinement, is only $18,990 drive away. Now, that's not an SUV. And we often talk about the SUV tax here on Chasing Cars, where you pay more to have this cladding and this sort of form factor. But a shrewd buyer will closely compare a car like the Venue with hatchbacks to make sure that you're driving your dollar as far as it can go. As for what I would pay for the Venue, in this spec, probably no more than that $18,990 mark, so I'd negotiate hard and keep your eyes open for deals. Also, the Venue is not the last word in refinement. It's pretty noisy in the cabin. You can hear the engine working pretty much all of the time. Wind noise and road noise is really loud at higher speeds. There's just not a huge amount by way of noise insulation. Not that you expect that too much at the bottom of the SUV market, it's just that the Venue is quite a bit more expensive than some quieter hatchbacks like the Volkswagen Polo. We really like about the Venue is its grown up and thoughtful interior. Sure, it's all pretty cheap and cheerful in here with lots of hard plastic, but the technology works really well. Have a look at this really crisp, thin touchscreen that is standard across the range. Now, there's no inbuilt navigation on this base car or digital radio, but you do have wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for your directions on the go and your own media. Plus, it's just nice and snappy. The controls are easy and functional, really clear rotary dials for the air conditioning as well. Plus, we have thoughtful features like this tray here. That's something you see in big SUVs like Hyundai's own Santa Fe. The steering wheel is nice and small. We have quite attractive analog gauges and trip computer with a digital speedo, which is not something to take for granted in this class. Plus, storage space is plentiful, though none of it's covered, so you wouldn't want to leave any of your valuables in this vehicle. Sadly, no armrest between the seats either. The second thing we like dynamically about the Venue is the resolved ride and handling. Now, all Hyundais in Australia get given a big going over in terms of their local tuning, in terms of stuff like springs, sway bars, dampers. So we actually end up with a car that works really well on our uniquely pockmarked local roads, and so it goes for the Venue, which actually rides really well despite its diminutive price. It handles bumps well, particularly at high speed on country roads, so it gives you confidence in how it's going to get down the road. It just, feels like it's going to stay on the blacktop. Plus, the handling's pretty fun. The steering's pretty direct, it's pretty light, the chassis moves around nicely beneath you, and the ESC system is well tuned. So I'm not going to say it's a fun car to drive, but it's certainly more engaging than some in the class. So those are our detailed opinions over a long-term review of the 2020 Hyundai Venue. We really like many aspects of this car, including its design, interior packaging, and the much better than expected driving dynamics. But you do need to bargain really hard on the price if you're considering a small SUV like this one. We think you'd need to knock off at least a couple of $1,000s for this to be a rational purchase. But once you have made that purchase, you've got the peace of mind of a long warranty and cheap servicing and just the durability of the Hyundai product. Let me know your thoughts on the Hyundai Venue down below. If you've got any extended questions, we're happy to answer them. While you're down there, make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.